All right, hello and welcome to today's workshop where we're going to be walking you through how to triple your sales by getting your internet marketing right in your plumbing, HVAC, home service company. And I know when I make a statement like that, some of you kind of look sideways at me like, triple my sales. That sounds pretty aggressive. And I'll tell you that when you get this dialed in and when you do it correctly, it absolutely is possible to triple your sales over the next 12 to 24 months. I'll do better. I'll actually show you real examples of companies that we've worked with over the last decade and a half. So you can see, like, here was the company, here was where they were, these are the strategies we put in place, and this is the outcome. So if you're okay with me sharing some of those examples, let me know in the chat. Just say examples, because I know me personally, I love to learn by theory. I love to like kind of see bullets and information, but I also want to know, like, all right, but is that real? Like, can you show me a real world example of that happening in the real world? And so I baked a lot of those examples into today's session so we can get the concept and you can actually implement it as well. And so we did put together a fully updated version of the workbook. You can access this by going to plumberseo.net/workbook. Nick, if you could drop that into the chat. We designed this workbook to make it very interactive. So like less of just repeating what I'm saying and more like, okay, so let's assess where we're missing the boat in certain areas of our online marketing strategy. Let's assess when it comes to each of the different pillars so that by the end of the session, you can have real clarity. Here's the missing component. Here's the thing I need to focus on right now that's going to move the needle most. And so I really encourage you, have this open, kind of track along with me, maybe in another tab as we go. And you can get to that by going to plumberseo.net/workbook. And so what we're going to cover, and I apologize that it's a little bit hard to see, I'll kind of toggle between this whiteboard and my actual screen so that you can kind of see what's going on. We're going to talk about the accelerated growth model for tripling your sales over the next 12 to 24 months. The most important channels that you should be focusing on now, because the internet marketing game is constantly changing. How to turn your website into a lead conversion machine. There's 4 conversion elements that we found when you put them on your website will significantly improve the conversion rates. Key strategies for generating better organic rankings. And when I say organic rankings, that's changing. It used to just be Google, but now we've got ChatGPT, we've got Gemini, we've got AI-related search results. And so we want to make sure we're coming up organically. How to win with local service ads and how to triple the amount of leads you get through paid online advertising. And so we've got a lot that we want to cover, but the big picture is let's build your plan to dial in your online marketing strategy so that you can triple your results over the next 12 to 24 months. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Josh Nelson. I'm the founder of Plumbing and HVAC SEO, and we're actively involved in QSC, Service Roundtable, CEO Warrior, Nextstar Network. We've been at it for about 15 years, and not only are we in the groups, not only are we implementing the strategies, but we're also the authors of How to Triple Your Sales by Getting Your Internet Marketing Right, which is one of the best-selling books on digital marketing for plumbing, HVAC, and home services. I'd say more important than any of that stuff is that over the last 15 years, we've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of plumbing, HVAC, electrical contractors in small markets and large markets, and seen many of them go from obscurity online to the point where they're either now the dominant player in their market or they've had the opportunity to sell their company in the last couple of years via PE. As a matter of fact, about 27 of our clients over the last 5 years have been acquired by PE. A lot of them will say that they became so attractive to the buyers because they had a great marketing system, they had consistent deal flow, and it was just their company was extremely valuable because of that. And so what I'm going to share isn't based on theory. This isn't based on hype. It's based on a real world in the trenches experience working with companies just like yours. And we're on a mission to help 1,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical contractors triple their sales by getting their internet marketing right. And I really like to think we're here for the small, independent plumbing, HVAC, home service company. There's plenty of national franchises out there. There's plenty of big companies that have been swallowed up by PE, but we're here for you as the independent, second, third generation business owner that wants to continue to be in the trade, that wants to continue to deliver amazing results to your local community. And so If at any point during this presentation you're like, Josh, this sounds great. I'd like to just hire you guys to do this for me. That's what we do. We love the opportunity to do that. It would start with a free lead flow acceleration session where we would do a complete review of your current website, your current online marketing strategy, show you exactly where the gaps are. And so if you're interested in that, you can go to plumberseo.net/schedule and pick a time. No cost, no obligation, just a pure value session. And so, like I said, I want to share examples because it's easy to say, oh, you can, if you get your internet marketing right, you can triple your sales. The first example I want to talk a little bit about is Mark Norman. Mark Norman runs a company called Shamrock Plumbing in Orlando, Florida. And he built a relatively successful company 20 years ago, but it was all done through the yellow pages. Back in the day, when somebody needed a plumbing, HVAC, electrical service contractor, they pulled out the yellow pages, and if you were there, you got the call, right? And he started to see the business erode. At some point, he was like, wow, like my lead flow has pretty much dried up. And he really asked, where did my customers go? If they're not looking in the yellow pages anymore, where are they looking? And what he found was that they had all shifted to the internet. Instead of looking in the yellow pages, they were going to Google, they were going to Angie, they were going to these various online sites. And kind of like it used to be back in the day, you could just advertise in the yellow pages and then that changed. I feel like that's where we're at right now with internet marketing. If your only play right now is, hey, I had to make sure I was coming up on Google, you may start to find yourself thinking like, where did the leads go? Like, where are things shifting? Because the market is changing. What we're seeing right now is there's a massive increase in popularity in AI, especially tools like Gemini, which is owned by Google, tools like ChatGPT, and more of your customers, while still using Google, are starting to look at some of these other platforms. And you want to make sure that you're paying attention not just to Google, but to the other places that your customers are looking and asking when they need your plumbing, HVAC, electrical home services. Number two is more and more of your customers don't want to have to exclusively pick up the phone and call your office. Like if they have the opportunity to schedule directly online, just like today, if they want a car to show up at their house, they go to Uber and they click a button and car shows up. They want their groceries, they click a couple of things in the app and the groceries show up. And your customer, your best customer, the higher end homeowner, is expecting that, they want that. And so if you're not offering the ability to them to schedule directly online, they're going to be clicking the back button and they're going to wind up potentially booking with one of your competitors. Number three is they would prefer, given the opportunity, to engage via two-way text message, right? Yes, we want the phone call and we want to be able to talk about their problem and diagnose their issue and schedule it through our dispatch board. But your customer in today's market, if they've given the opportunity to text message with you and get that same problem solved, would prefer it. And so if you're not already embracing some of these changes, you might start to look like Mark back in the day, where you had a successful company, but the lead flow started to dry up. The results stopped being there. And so that's why I'm sharing these trends and what you want to be paying attention to. And then number four is that AI can be a tool to massively accelerate the results that you get. We can use AI to follow up with leads quicker, to follow up more diligently with the opportunities that we get. And if we're not leveraging that technology, the chances are your competitors are, especially the big PE firms that have just bought 6 of the companies in your local market. They're investing in technologies like this, they're leveraging it. And so I don't want you to start to fall behind. I want you to be aware that this technology exists, and I want you to embrace it. I want you to leverage it so that you can serve your customers, because we all know you guys are going to serve your customers better, you're going to treat them better, and we want you to get those jobs versus the competition. And then number 5 is we have to lean into how we can be more authentic in today's marketplace. With AI, we can spin up content, service pages, city pages, information in moments. And with a flood of new content coming on the internet from your competitors that are using these AI platforms, the thing that's going to make you stand out is what's unique to you. One of the best ways right now to stand out is by leveraging video, right? Like get yourself or your super technician or your team on video when they're out in the field, when they're doing jobs, answering questions, because if they can hear in your voice, they can hear your care, they can see your personality shine through, that's going to make you stand out from the competition. And so these are just a couple of really important trends I wanted to bring to the fore that, hopefully you guys have all read the book, Who Moved My Cheese? The cheese is moving, right? And if we don't move to where it's going, we're not going to have anything to eat, right? Our family is going to starve. And so really the question that Mark was trying to solve for, and probably the question you need to be solving for, is how do we own the internet in our area? How do we make sure that when the customer needs us, they think of us, they get to our website, and they book through us? And so looking back at Mark's story over the years, he was like, okay, Yellow Pages isn't working anymore. And so the first thing he did was he hired YP.com. The old Yellow Page rep came in and said, hey, you need a website. We need to get you online. Let's do this thing. And so he signed up with YP.com all those years ago, and they set up a website for him. And a couple months went by, still no calls, still no leads, still pretty frustrated. She was like, man, that didn't work. So he's like, I got to try something else. And so at the time, he was like, well, what do I need to do different? And one of the big pay-per-click management companies at the time might have been like Yodel or Reach Local or one of them. Probably you remember some of these companies came in and said, hey, look, we're going to get you up on Google and Bing in the pay-per-click area, right? We're just going to make sure you're coming up in the pay-per-click area. We're going to track everything. We're going to track the phone calls. You're going to be able to hear everything. It's going to be amazing. And so he put some money into that. And what he found was, all right, I did get some leads, not enough leads, but I did get some leads, but it didn't really generate much of a return on investment. It was just a little bit of deal flow. And the issue with this strategy was, while he was starting to show up in some of the paid results on Google, he wasn't coming up in the organic listings where most of the low-cost traffic comes from. He wasn't leveraging retargeting. And most importantly, he didn't have a website that made somebody want to choose him versus the competition. He just had a vanilla website that YP.com had built for him over the years. And so he's kind of at this stuck point where he's like, man, I'm spending money. I'm trying to make good decisions, but I'm still not getting the outcomes. I'm still not getting the growth that I'm after. And so really what he needed to solve for at the time was, how do we make sure we're coming up in the non-paid results on Google, on Bing at the time? And then how do we make sure that we've got a website that's compelling enough that makes somebody want to choose us versus the competition? And so we implemented our growth system, which we're going to be sharing with you guys on today's session and kind of working through as part of this workshop. And we made sure he was coming up, right? Organically, kind of in the map listings. We run a search today, your city plumber, plumbing, HVAC contractor. We've got the map listings. Also in the organic listings, like the non-paid listings. And there's a lot of different ways to come up in the organic listings. First, it could be on your website, could also be on directories that we optimize ourselves for, like YP and like Angie and like those other sites like that. And then we want to make sure we're coming in the paid results, specifically Google local service ads and Google ads. So we implemented this process, starting with making sure we had a great website that was built to convert. And I'm going to show you a bunch of examples in today's market that are built to convert. And there's very specific things you can put in place that make somebody want to choose you, make them feel like you're for them, and then give them all of the right elements to make a good decision. And so we got his website set up and it was built to convert. And then we made sure it was coming up in all of those places in most of the keywords. We type in Orlando plumber, plumbing, drain cleaning, water heater repair, coming up in the top results. And over time, we implemented our full digital dominance method. All of the different strategies and techniques to really make the phone ring, to keep the business booming. So kind of look back 2017, started to implement the SEO, the organic strategies, and was averaging about 230 leads per month. Then we started to layer on some better paid traffic strategies. Kind of fast forward, about 497 leads per month on average. 2019, things start to ramp up, 586 leads per month. And then as of the last tracking we've done with Shamrock Plumbing, over 118 leads per month directly from the internet. And so you can see that's more than a tripling of the number of leads, more than a tripling, obviously, of the number of booked jobs and revenue growth within his organization. And if we kind of look at what that meant for Mark and the team at Shamrock Plumbing. He grew from a one-man operator doing about $250,000 per year back in 2011 to over $5.5 million and continuing to grow and continuing to scale. So much so that just last year, Shamrock Plumbing was purchased by a PE group. I know not all of us aspire for that, and that's not the journey that all of us are on, but it's great to know that you've built a company so valuable that somebody else would want to buy it. I want you to think about what would that mean for you if you could triple the number of leads that you were getting, if you could triple the amount of booked jobs, if you could have consistent deal flow coming in month over month. Would that give you more options? Would that give you more confidence? Would you be able to go do more things that you wanted to do, maybe financially, maybe with your investments? And so that's what I want to do now. I want to kind of shift gears and let's look at exactly how we can apply those same strategies, those same techniques with the latest and greatest in what's going on in digital marketing to your business. And so I'm going to pull up this workbook real quick. Again, if you haven't already accessed it, you can go to plumberseo.net/workbook. It should redirect you to the Google Sheet that we've got set up for this. And I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully this works correctly. Okay. And so when you go to plumberseo.net/workbook, it'll take you to this page, right? It'll take you to this page. And we have fully updated this with our accelerated growth roadmap, a very specific scoring mechanism. And so as I go through these strategies with you today, I'd like you to keep this page up. This is page 3. And I want you to rate yourself on a scale from 1 to 5. 1 being terrible, not doing it well, 5 being you're crushing it. And I'm going to take you guys through some exercises to get clear on goals where you can mark these things down. And then we're going to really assess each of the different pillars within your company and where there needs to be change, right? Because awareness precedes change, but then we have to do something about it. We have to go do something to move that into play. And so hopefully you came to work today. Hopefully you're ready to roll up your sleeves and get to work on this. You've got this workbook. I would really encourage you, hit the file, make a copy button. That way you get your own version that you can work from, and then fill this in with me. Do these exercises. I promise you at the end of this session, you'll have more clarity and you'll have a clear action plan. Not on all of it, right? Because you can't knock it all out at once, but like what's the most important thing that you can do next that's going to move the needle in your company? Okay, hopefully we've all got that workbook up now and we can get into action. So if I talk about tripling your sales, right? And it's different for everybody, right? If you're doing $1 million, that's going to 3 million. If you're at 3 million, that's going to 9 million. It's different for everybody, but no marketing plan, no marketing strategy should start without goals and really figuring out, okay, that's the goal. What is the realistic KPI that's going to be required to make that happen? And so the first exercise I want to do is walk you through a calculator that will help you figure out, well, what's the goal? And then how many leads, how many booked jobs, what's the metrics I need to track in order to build that into reality? Because without a goal, without clarity on the KPI, we can't build the action plan to bring it into reality. And so what I want you to do is, if you pull up calculator.plumberseo.net, it's going to take you to a tool that makes tracking these numbers and setting these numbers extremely easy. Nick just dropped that into the chat. Everybody, real quick, just pull up calculator.plumberseo.net, and I'm going to walk through this with you guys, and so that you guys know exactly what the numbers are and how this plays out. And so this is the calculator, and I'll kind of do an example here. Let's just say your company right now is doing $1 million per year. And let's say the target is to go to 3. Different for everybody, but let's just say that was the case. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to type in what's the annual target. So now that's $3 million. The other question that we need to know is what's our average transaction value? What's the average value whenever we get out into a home? And like, if you don't know, you could take your entire annual revenue, divide that by the number of service calls. That will give you an idea of what your average transaction value is. But let's just say for ranges from as little as $350, which is a problem, all the way up to, thousands and thousands of dollars in plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. But let's just say it's $750. I would love for you to put your actual number in there. This gives you some clarity on, okay, well, if that's my goal and that's my average transaction value, what's my monthly target? In this case, it's 250,000. We need $250,000 in revenue for 12 months to get to 3 million. And then how many jobs will we need to generate? How many book jobs in order to hit that target? So in this case, that would be 330 jobs at 750 gets me to 250,000, and 250,000 times 12 months gets me to 3 million. That's the first step. But we're just kind of figuring out how many jobs are we going to need in order to bring this into reality. And we can figure that out by entering these two numbers. From there, really where this becomes practical for your marketing strategy is based on that, how many leads do I need to generate in order to get those 333 jobs? And so that's going to be based on your average conversion ratio from lead into an actual revenue generating job. And so I've heard numbers from as little as 10% all the way up to as much as like 65 or 70%. And so what I want you to do here is just put the number in. What is your conversion rate? Let's just say it's 50%. So if you can optimize around 50%, that means you need 667 leads. And these are the numbers I want you to be really clear on. What's the goal? Where do we want to get to in the next 12 months? How many jobs do we need to generate in order to make that a reality? And then what's the number of leads required? And this is what our marketing strategy is going to be built around, right? No sense going out and doing more SEO and doing pay-per-click and running Facebook ads and buying leads from Angie if we don't know what's the target that we're shooting for. Clarity is the key, and then we can build the plan in order to make it a reality. And what's really interesting is if you drill down on this, you say, okay, now I have a big picture idea. What are the numbers? What are the metrics? If we can make little changes to our average transaction value, to our average conversion rate by leveraging automation, by putting other strategies in place, we can actually generate fewer leads, invest less money, and still get the outcome. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if you go to growthgap.plumberseo.net, this is a really cool tool that Nick from our marketing team put together that helps you identify what is the gap and kind of how can we play with some of these variables to make it simpler. So in this particular case, I believe the number for our example here was we need 250,000, right? So let's just say monthly revenue 250. What's the average ticket, right? If we're down here at the low end 200, that's going to mean we got to get a lot of leads, right? Well, let's hope we've trained our technicians. We've got confidence out in the field and we get that ticket up. Let's say that ticket we get up to $1,000 on average. You can see how that changes the number of leads that we need to generate. And it kind of changes those variables. If we can improve our close ratio by having better people on the phones, by using AI potentially to answer after hours, by putting automation to follow up with those people that text message in or those people that are interested but haven't said yes yet, we can move that up. And this just helps you play with what those variables are and kind of visualize this in a way that can give you massive clarity on what it truly takes to hit that goal. So hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully walking through these exercises gives you some clarity on what's the goal, how am I going to get there, how do we make this a reality. Give me a 1 in the chat if you're tracking along with me and we're talking your language so far on today's session. All right. So what I want you to do is scroll down to page 4 in your workbook and let's write these numbers down, right? Let's not just plug things into a calculator. Let's get clear. And this is where I want you to do a little bit of work in today's session. In the workbook on page 4, go in there and what is your target for the next 12 months? How many book jobs are you going to need based on the calculator to bring that into reality? How many leads does that require? And then if you play with the budget calculator, which I didn't get into, what would be the average cost per lead that you're going to be shooting for as an aggregate? Clarity precedes results, right? Clarity precedes the results. Let me come back to you on that, Ryan, because these are all formulas, right? And they're not 100%, but it's directionally driving you to an accurate outcome. Okay, so let's get those target numbers in. So now we know what the goal is. Here's how many leads we need to shoot for in order to bring this to reality. Now let's build out the plan. Let's build out, what do we actually have to put in place in order to make that happen? And that's where our accelerated growth model comes into play. And this again is proven out over hundreds and hundreds of plumbing, HVAC, and home service companies that we've worked with over the years. Well, there's really three things that we have to put in place. Number one, we have to drive leads. Right? We have to have leads coming in on a consistent basis in order to hit those targets. Number two is we have to maximize conversion, because you can generate lots of great leads, lots of phone calls, lots of inquiries, but if you aren't converting them into customers and then converting them into repeat and referral customers, you're not really getting anywhere. And then number three is we have to optimize the results. We've got to figure out, okay, what's working? How much are we spending? What's the true result? What's the true outcome? And so we're going to unpack each of these three key things. And there's basically three accelerators that we're going to walk through in each of these areas. So when it comes to driving leads, the first thing we want to focus on is organic, non-paid opportunities that are low cost, but still high quality and high opportunity. And so when I say SEO, some of you might be like, SEO, like, is that really even important anymore? Is that even a thing? Like, are people still clicking the non-paid listings now that they've got access to cheap ChatGPT and these paid search results? And what I want to tell you is, still in today's market, when somebody goes to Google, it's still the number one search engine, and they type in, your city plus your service, like Denver Plumber, Denver AC Repair, Denver Electrical Services, 71% of the clicks are going to the results that are on the first organic page. 67% go to the top 5, which would be your 3 map listings and your top 2 organic listings below that, 67%. So how does that actually play out in the real world? Well, one of the companies we work with is Meridian Advantage, and they're based in the East Lansing, Michigan area, down by the big university there. And we spent a lot of time and energy on the organic side of the equation for them, building a great website, optimizing it, building the authority, and they come up really well on the map in the organic results for literally hundreds of keywords relevant to their customers in that service area. And they also come up in generative search. So we've paid very close attention to how do we not just optimize for Google, but how do we make sure when someone asks, who's the best plumbing company in East Lansing, Michigan? Or, hey, I'm looking to change out my water heater in the East Lansing, Michigan area. Who do you recommend? They come up very well in generative search. Mainly, I'm talking about ChatGPT here. And what I want you to see is the tracking, right? I said I was going to show you examples and back it up with data. So here's the Meridian company. They invest about $8,000 a month in their online marketing. And so that's our services plus ad spend on local service ads and Google. They generate 417 leads per month. So if we divide that out, it's about $19.32 on average per lead. Very good in a competitive market like that. But for the purposes of SEO, what I want to draw your attention to is out of those 417 leads, 95 of them are coming from organic and 173 are coming directly from Google Maps. That's 65% of the lead flow that they're getting is directly from non-paid sources, which just goes to tell you, yes, SEO still matters. I can pull up hundreds of companies in various markets and show you they're still getting a lot of really good leads. And if we tie that into their dispatch system, like Service Titan or House Call Pro, we can see that they're getting a lot of revenue from those channels as well. And so, yes, organic still matters. Number one source for organic is Google search. Coming up quick, however, is ChatGPT search, and as well as the results that come up above that now with the zero-click results. And so when I talk about organic, yes, I mean search engine optimization, but you're going to hear different terms that come up like AEO, answer engine optimization, which is getting you to come up in the answer engines like Google Voice Assistant, Siri, if you have an Amazon Alexa in your house. That's what answer engine optimization is, typically referred to as. Generative engine optimization is the more commonly used large language model chat systems like right now ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Microsoft Copilot. And so I don't want you to get stuck on the terminology, but when I say organic, we want to make sure we're coming up not just in SEO, but we're coming up in all of the places that your customer are looking, that you're not paying on a per inquiry basis. The other really important trend right now with SEO, or organic results, is zero-click results, which is where even before you see a paid ad or even before you see a result, you've got these zero-click previews that come up at the top. And there's more and more traffic going to that. So we want to make sure we're creating content that answers questions that is very specific, that gives us the opportunity to show up in those results. And so in order to make sure we've got a great SEO strategy, still in today's market, we've got to figure out what are our customers actually typing in when they look for us. And it's not just local plumber or plumber near me or HVAC repair. They're typing in your city plus plumber, plumbing, drain cleaning, leak detection, water heater repair, sewer replacement, repiping, all of your different services. There's a combination of keywords that go along with each of those. And so usually for plumbing, HVAC, home service companies, we've got about 250 keywords, main keywords with the city at the front, the city at the end, and all of the long tail variations that go along with that. And so we do have this list. We're constantly refining this list. If you'd like to get a copy of it, I believe I added a link to it into your workbook, but you can also go to plumberseo.net/keywords. And we've also got the HVAC keywords, which are different, and the electrical keywords, which are even different than that. But again, when we say AEO, GEO, SEO, in my mind, let's just call it search everywhere optimization, which is SEO, right? At the end of the day, like, we don't need a million different acronyms. We just want to make sure we're coming up everywhere our customers are looking and make sure we've got those opportunities. And this looks different across the spectrum, right? Like when we Google search or ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity, and we don't know who the winner is going to be just yet, right? For a little bit, it felt like it was going to be ChatGPT. Everybody was using ChatGPT, and that was the engine. It still has lots of market share, but now coming up even more is Claude and so these other platforms. The key is to kind of be ahead of it and be creating content around it so that we can show up in those results. In today's market, where we stand right now, Google still dominates the results. Like if you were to look at the 80-20 principle, that 20% of the results generate 80% of the outcomes, Google search is still where it's at. What I would really encourage you to do in this stage in the presentation, if you want to figure out how you're coming up, because that's where it starts, is to run some searches for your city plus plumbing, your city plus your services, and see how you come up on Google, see how you come up on Gemini, see how you come up on ChatGPT. That can be time consuming, especially if you don't have the tools and you don't have the know-how on how to combine those keywords. And so what I'd love to do for you, those of you that are on here live, is run that analysis for you completely free of charge. We'll take our list of keywords with your service area and the services you actually provide, concatenate it, give you a full customized keyword list, and then show you, based on the reporting tools, we spend literally hundreds, maybe tens of thousands of dollars a year in these platforms, and give you a report that rolls that up and shows you exactly where you come up today. And so if you'd like to get that analysis, we'll do it completely free of charge. All you have to do is go to plumberseo.net/schedule. We'll ask you some questions about your website, the services you provide, and then we can take it and run with it from there. And then we'll jump on a call and walk you through that report and show you, like, here's where it's good, here's where there's room for improvement. And so a lot of different things go into actually getting your website ranked. I could do a full hour and 30 minutes just on SEO. I tried to put the main components into your workbook there in terms of, we want to make sure we have pages for each of the services that we offer. We want to make sure that we have pages for the cities that we operate in, like literally dedicated pages on the website. And then the way we create the content around that can't just be like clone the page from one city to the next. We need to create unique, compelling content, and we can use AI to help with this, but we also want to make sure we're writing it for both the search engines as well as the consumer. Because who cares if you come up if it doesn't speak to that customer, make them feel like, okay, this is what I was looking for. This is the company that I should call. And so I've got a great checklist for this for you guys. And, it's not just what we do on the website. It's also what we do off the website, how we build the links, how we build the citations, how we build the authority so that those pages can actually have enough authority to rank and to outrank some of the big competitors in major markets. I'll show a quick example of this. One of the companies we work with is Bud's Plumbing. And so I'm going to share my screen here real quick. And I'm going to show you how we structure the website for organic rankings. So hopefully this is helpful as I'm kind of teaching the content, but then also showing some live examples and things as we go. All right. So this is Bud's Plumbing. They're based in Evansville, Indiana. It's not the right one. Bud's Plumbing and Repair. Okay, so this site ranks for literally hundreds of keywords. I'm going to show you some of the data behind that here in a second. But when I say we want to structure it for the search engines, we want to make sure we put some things in place that obviously from a conversion perspective, we'll talk about here in a minute, but you'll notice there is a lot of content on this website. There's a lot of optimization in terms of the way that content is structured and the images are structured on the site. And so we've got obviously clear optimization on the homepage with our title tag saying exactly who they are and what they do. But then we've got pages for each of the services. If we want to make sure we're coming up in Evansville for drain cleaning, then we need a page that says Evansville Drain Cleaning Services. We get drain cleaning in Evansville. That's the title tag. That's the H1 tag. That's the content specifically for that particular service, and more content with some Q&A data as well as FAQ information, which gives us the opportunity not just to optimize for Google, but also those generative engines. I could hit all of these pages, but you can see we want to make sure we think about what are the services we provide. How does that map to the keywords that our customers would type when they need our services and optimize around that? And then we've also got to make sure we think about the surrounding cities and towns that we operate in. So Evansville is their main town, but most of us, it's sort of like a 25 to 30 mile radius, and there's a bunch of little cities and towns around there. We need to make sure we've got pages for each of those cities and towns that's properly optimized, right? So, specifically targeting that town, specific content on that particular page, embedded maps, and great unique content around that. And then we can even go a step deeper and create specific service pages for that particular town and interlink it all. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I could go, a day just talking about SEO. I'm just trying to focus on the key components of this. That way you get the idea. And so, this is Bud's Plumbing. And you can see if we type in like Evansville Plumber, they come up number one on the map. They come up top in the organic results. We track hundreds of keywords. They come up in the top couple of results in their service area. We also want to make sure they're coming up in generative search. And so if we go to ChatGPT and we ask it, I'm looking for a plumber in Evansville, who would you recommend? ChatGPT is pointing to Bud's Plumbing. And so that's kind of structurally how you do the SEO. Now let me show you the data and the actual results that they're getting. So Bud's Plumbing, you can see here about a $13,500 investment in online marketing. That's our management fees plus their ad spend. 828 leads tracked per month. That's an average of $16.35 per lead. And you can see a lot of that's coming from the map. It's coming from the organic listings, but they're also augmenting that with paid search. And so that's organic, right? We want to make sure we're coming up in Google, we're coming up in generative results. And when we do it right, when we build the proper authority, we can generate lots of really high quality leads. And that becomes the baseline foundation for your accelerated growth model. The second channel we want to drill down on is paid, right? Because we can't just do paid. There's a saturation point where, yes, we want to make sure we're doing SEO, we're coming up organically. But if we want to be able to turn the knob and say, all right, I'm 1 million, now I want to go to 3 million, now I want to go to 9 million, we have to have some additional channels that we can plug into. And so when it comes to paid search, I'm a believer that we start with the organic foundation, good website, built to convert, coming up organically. And then we start to layer on Google ads and local service ads. Local service ads first, Google ads second in today's marketplace. That's very directional. The customers are looking for you and you're only paying when they either click or when they call, in the case of local service ads. Most of us can double down just on that and generate great results and generate enough lead flow to hit our targets and to hit our benchmarks. Before we start doing any other advertising, there's two things I would recommend that you start to put in place. That's retargeting and automation. So retargeting is when they get to the website, we pixel them, and now they start to see us on other websites. They start to see us on Facebook and on the other social media channels that they're using. Retargeting is a very low-cost way to remain top of mind with that customer that may or may not have moved yet. Not everybody that gets to your website converts immediately. Some of them click back. They're thinking about it, especially with the higher transaction value services like a water heater replacement or a new air conditioning system. They might be thinking about it for a while. So we want to remain top of mind with them through retargeting. But the other thing you really want to make sure you have in place, if you're spending any type of money on paid advertising, is automation. Because speed to lead, the quickness from when somebody inquires to when we're talking to them and they've actually booked, is the number one determinant of your success. And so if we're not using automation, two-way text messaging, workflow sequences to move opportunities forward, we're going to be leaving opportunities on the table. So once we've got that in place, I would say to $10 million for most companies, this will get you where you need to go if you do it right. Up from there would be actually investing in some of the paid online directories, and this would be contingent on your market. Like if we go to your city plus your main service, does Angie come up? Does Yelp come up? Does some other online directory come up in the organic results? If so, we might want to invest for a paid listing in that particular directory. And this varies widely. Like we've got clients in LA that do really well with Yelp, right? And they just invest in Yelp and they get a good return on investment. But then other clients in other markets get a terrible result. And so it's really important that you think about your market. You don't just randomly buy these directories, which you strategically select the ones that are going to be great return on investment, great exposure in your marketplace. And then there's also the pay per lead services like Thumbtack, like Angie, and other varieties of those. Most companies hate pay per lead services. And I agree, because it's going out to 3 to 5 companies. You're getting more of the looky-loo buyers. But I like this if you've already maxed out your Google local service ads, you've already maxed out your paid advertising. Well, we need more leads, right? We know we've got a target, we've got to hit. Why not invest a little bit in some of these pay per lead services, especially if you can set your lead target, you can set your lead volume, and you've got automation in place. You know, the biggest challenge most companies have is they get the lead and the customer's already been booked. They're already sold somewhere else. That's because someone else is following up much quicker than you are. They're leveraging automation in a way that you aren't. And so if we can tie in automation to your pay per lead, we can start to generate a good return on investment from those opportunities. And then kind of at the very top of the hierarchy is more paid advertising on like Facebook ads, Google, YouTube ads, brand advertising. And I say this at the top because, you know, if you're less than 10 million, you probably don't need to go there, right? You can do organic. But if you're over 10 million and it's like, hey, I want to become the company in this market, then building your brand and building your name recognition so that they're thinking of you even before they have the problem, this is a good place to invest some of your dollars. And so if you think about paid advertising, the way that you stack it, first and foremost is local service ads. In today's marketplace, when you do this right, when you've got a properly optimized account, when you're closing the loop on the leads that you generate to the outcomes, this is the highest quality, lowest cost paid advertising mechanism that there is. And so I recommend max out the budget. If you're not hitting your lead targets, make sure that you've opened the floor on local service ads. And then from there would be Google ads, right? And so you would kind of go up from there. I've got a full training on how to set up local service ads for results. It's not as simple as picking your service and setting your budget. Like there's very specific things you want to put in place to optimize for it. Also, make sure that you aren't missing calls on LSA. Answer the calls live. And then once the call is done, close the loop. Did you get that book job? There's a target booking rate from your local service ads. You want to shoot for 85%, and there's a reporting mechanism on the back end. But there's very specific things that we do for our clients to optimize those accounts and to make sure that we're getting the best return on investment possible there. A couple of examples here, because I can't show visuals of local service ads. A couple of companies. Cardinal Heating and Cooling, it's a company we work with in the Wisconsin area. They spent $330,000 in 2025 on local service ads. 550,000 impressions, 7,305 leads with a 60% absolute impression rate, and they closed $6 million directly from local service ads, the plumbing, HVAC, electrical company. That's an 18-time return on investment. And so this can be a really effective channel if you've got your systems in place and you've got the speed to lead dialed in. Another company we work with is Wakona Comfort, HVAC company. This is just for the first quarter 2026. $8,000 invested in local service ads, 132 leads charged, $65,000 invested, 8-time return on investment. So again, local service ads can be extremely effective. And then this is Jerry Brenham AC and Heating based in Daytona, Florida. This was 2024 versus 2025. And this is just to show you that when you optimize correctly and you've got all of the loops being closed, lead generated, lead answered, what happened with the outcome, you're passing signals to Google that you're a trusted provider and you're more likely to be included into only the 3 results that come up in local service ads. And so they went from 154 leads per month to 291 leads per month, about $191,000 in estimated revenue. So that's local service ads. Don't sleep on this. Make sure you're in there, you're playing the game correctly. It can work really well. From there is the actual Google ads, which is where we're picking the keywords and we're making sure we're only paying on a per-click basis. Most of the plumbing, HVAC, home service companies I talk with tell me, I've done Google ads and it was a fail. Like it was a waste of money, and they've been through the ringer on this. They were with Reach Local, and then they were with Yodel, and then they were with the kid across the street, and then they hired somebody else to do it, and then they brought someone in-house to try and do it. And in every case, they're like, man, I spent money and it did not work out. And there's a lot that go into setting up a Google ads campaign for success, right? And I think the biggest mistake that I see companies make is they'll pick their keywords, plumbing, drain cleaning, water heaters, repiping, and they'll put them all in one ad group and they'll drive it to the homepage. And that's a recipe for failure when it comes to running Google ads for your home service company, because your keywords aren't going to be relevant to the actual text ad that comes up. The landing page that they get to once they've clicked isn't going to resonate because they had a very specific thing they were looking to solve. And you wind up paying more per click and getting a lower result. And when you're looking at $150 to $200 clicks, you have to make sure that you optimize this completely. And so that starts with having a great landing page that is specific. We want a different page for paid traffic from Google than we do from organic traffic. There's a different mindset and there's a different approach to it. And so I'm just going to pull up a quick example here of how we structure landing pages as opposed to the way that we structure organic traffic, because we want to track it, we want directional, and we want to make sure we optimize for the result, especially when we're paying that much on a per-click basis. I'm just going to pull up this example. This is A1 Ready Router. You can see here, this is very different than their actual website. It's a lot less busy, right? We've got the request service, we've got the phone number in the top left-hand corner, we've got a special offer, because if somebody's clicking on you from a paid ad, typically they don't know you yet. They haven't decided whether they want to use you, so we want to give them incentive to move forward. Web form option where they can quickly request their information, and then some basic details about your company. The really important component here is it's simple, it's very directional, and it's mobile optimized. So when someone gets to this from a mobile device, it's straightforward. Here's your offer, here's your way to convert, and it feels professional. It's like, okay, this is a solid company that's going to take good care of me. We want specific landing pages like this for each of your services, right? So if we're talking about drain cleaning, there should be a drain cleaning page that's specifically designed and talking about drain cleaning and a specific offer for that thing. And same for trenchless sewer replacement and same for repiping, right? We want dedicated pages for each of these different services. That's how we can increase our relevance. That's how we can increase our conversion rate because we're matching exactly what they're looking for. And so you'll see, obviously, this is quite a bit different than the actual organic website, which is really speaking more to the brand customer. It's speaking more to the search engines so that we can make sure we're coming up in these results because you can't have a thin page and rank really well in paid search. So hopefully that's helpful to see kind of like an example of how you want to structure these landing pages to get the best outcome and to get the best results. And so in your workbook, I talked about like the different ad groups and the different campaign strategies that we found work effective. I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but we want a brain campaign and then we want water heater campaign with those different keywords, and we structure it in that way for the best results and for the best outcomes. And so a good example of this, leaning heavily into paid advertising, getting great results, is Cardinal HVAC in Wisconsin. And if we look at their marketing approach, we're putting about $12,000 a month in advertising with us. That's our management fee plus the ad spend. 936 leads tracked. It's about $12.83 per lead, and a nice mix, right? We've got some from organic, we've got some from paid, we've got some from Google Maps. We're really starting to roll out the complete digital dominance method in this case. And if we drill just on the paid ads, overall, $12.82 blended cost per lead, specifically to the Google ads, 9,000 of that went straight to Google, and an average cost per lead of $40.23. I'm not saying that's the number because it's different in every market. It depends upon how quality your brand is and how known you are. But when we optimize this, we can get an effective cost per lead, which leads to a great return on investment. If we do the math on this, basically those 224 leads generates $66,000 in revenue, which is a 7-time return on investment. And if we look at overall call volume for them over the last year, and we kind of drill down on this, we can see 975 calls to 2,000 calls. Obviously, there's an increase in budget here, but there's also an increase in optimization. 35% click-to-call ratio. So because we have those landing pages and because they're really well optimized and matched to the search, 35% of those paid visitors are turning into a lead. And that's 28 times return on closed and sold and 44 times on potential. That makes sense if you realize that we can match this to Service Titan. And so we know which of those leads actually generated revenue. And so there was $44,000 in estimates generated 44 times and 28 times in an actual closed revenue. So again, this can be really effective when we get it dialed in well. Example here of Fairham Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Q4 2025, 350 leads. Q1, 655 leads. 10-time return on actual closed revenue from those ads. So it's really important that when you set up paid advertising, that you've got conversion tracking in place. We can't just run the ads and cross our fingers. Like, we need to know exactly how many leads came in, exactly which of those leads were booked, exactly what the return on investment is, so that we can optimize and eliminate keywords. We can eliminate ad groups and double down on the things that actually generate results. And so I've given you some KPIs to shoot for and some things to pay attention to in the workbook. Again, I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but there is a report done by Searchlight, which is a platform that mirrors and matches to Service Titan. And they've got good metrics on what they're seeing as the industry norms, the average cost per lead across various channels. And so I'm going to share that with you guys because it's not for the faint of heart, right? You're going to have to be able to spend a little bit of money on paid advertising, and you're going to have to do it extremely well in order to get a great result. And so you can see here, branded search, an average cost per lead of like $34, but the non-branded, like they're not typing your company name, $149 per lead. And that's across the metrics. It's going to be different for AC maintenance and AC installation than it is for plumbing, right? Plumbing is an average of $166, $67 per lead. So you've got a $2,000 ticket, you can get a decent return on ad sales. I think these metrics give you a benchmark. And our team looks very closely at these benchmarks. We always want to get the lowest cost per lead and the highest return on investment, but we're definitely looking to beat the average. But this gives you an idea of what the average is, not based on theory, not based on hype, but on actual matched lead flow to book jobs in ServiceTitan in this case. And in some cases, House Call Pro and some of the other platforms, but predominantly ServiceTitan. Okay, so the other piece that you want to make sure is retargeting, and this is, something you should have in place because we can remain top of mind, and then we want to make sure we're leveraging automation to follow up with those leads when they do call in. That way, we've got speed to lead. We're the first person to get them on the phone, or the first person to connect with them on text messaging. So we're driving leads via organic. We're driving leads via paid, which is all of the mix of services I described, and then we also want to advertise via database marketing. Because you've got past customers, because you've got customers that have tried to do business with you in the past. And so we can't forget about those. Those are cash in the closet, so to speak. And so the best way to use this is to send an email and a text message offer, and you can come up with all kinds of creative offers. We tend to do a seasonal offer, or a, hey, we're going to be in your area offer, or some type of in-home evaluation. Hey, it's time to evaluate or to test your HVAC system. It's time to do a tune-up. It's time to test your water heater system. And get in the door with that offer so that we can identify opportunities. And so this is a really cool example, right? Just like text message, we've got an offer, would you like it? And if they click yes, we can have automation that fires, that moves them to schedule appointment. An example of this is 72 Degrees, Carney & Sons, company we work with here. They had a list of 5,000 companies or prospects in their database, sent an offer, 300 replies, 119 book jobs. Not all of them convert, right? Because they're a low cost offer, but 29 actual completed with $84,000 in revenue. And it didn't cost them $1. Didn't have to spend any more money to get that revenue. And so we want to bake this into the strategy, right? Every time we get a lead, every time we get a customer, we want to be converting that. Because if we spent $300 to generate the lead or $120 to generate the lead, we might only generate a little bit of revenue the first time, but if we can sell to them in the future and sell to them again and again, that cost per lead becomes more and more manageable. So this is a big piece of the overall strategy. That's driving leads. I want to pause right there because let's take some time to reflect. Let's take some time to rate ourselves. On page 4 in your workbook, I asked you to kind of rate yourself when it comes to driving leads, organic, paid, database marketing. How are you doing on a scale from 1 to 5? 1 being not getting it much, and it's all word of mouth. 5 being you feel like you've got it fully dialed in. This should help you really start to see where there's room for improvement and where things could be generating better results for you. So I'm just going to pause for a second. All right. So that's driving leads. We also have to make sure we convert the leads. A lot of SEO companies, when we think about we're going to get ranked, we're going to generate traffic, don't really take it to like, well, who cares? Like what we really want is, are those visitors converting into leads? And then are those leads converting into book jobs? And are those book jobs converting into repeat customers that use this again and again and post reviews, right? So we're building our reputation. And so we really have to think about how do we optimize conversion. And for me, the place that this starts is with your website. Like everybody, for the most part, is going to wind up on your website, either on a desktop or on mobile before they convert. And there's 4 key things in today's markets, 4 big drivers of conversion. 1 is online scheduling. If you don't have online scheduling on your website today, you're leaving money on the table. Your customer wants to be able to pick a date, pick a time, and be done with it. And so make sure you're giving them the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to book my time and take it off my to-do list. Number 2 is two-way text messaging. Your customers want the opportunity to engage with you. If I can text you and say, hey, my house address is 13999. I need to change my HVAC system. Can you send someone out? And I don't have to call. I don't have to have a conversation. That's my preference. And that's your customer's preference as well. Phone number in the top right-hand corner, just obvious. You should make it really easy for those people that do want to call in. And then number 4 is some type of online estimator where they can enter some basic details and get an idea what the pricing is. I'm going to show an example of this because I think I could talk about it all day, but really seeing a real example of one of these websites and how these things come together is useful. And so I'm going to pull up my screen again and we're going to look at this example. Okay. So this is Cardinal. I showed you some of their data a little bit earlier where they're generating great results from their online marketing. Key things. Here's the website. Good website, very professional, very polished, lots of personality and authenticity. This company now does well over $10 million per year. Number one, phone number. In today's market, there's still a lot of people that prefer to pick up the phone and call. Number two, online scheduling. If they have the opportunity to give a little bit of detail about their problem and pick a date and a time, they don't have to talk to anybody. They don't have to call the office. They're not going to hit the back button and they're not going to go call the next person because they've already scheduled through your platform. I highly encourage you. This technology exists. It should absolutely be in place. But then there's still people that would prefer to have some type of chat. And you can do this through Chirp. You can do this through Conversion App. You can do this for any variety of platforms, but give them an opportunity to engage with you in a two-way text message. And when I say two-way text message, there's chat that happens on the website, and then there's chat that moves to their mobile phone. So when they type in their cell phone number, now you're texting with them on their phone. What's really neat is with AI, we can automate most of the conversation because 99% of the people ask the same question or some variation of the same questions, and AI can be trained enough to say, hey, let me ask a follow-up on that. Okay, hey, did you want to go ahead and schedule a time? And then check the schedule and say, hey, let's go ahead and book that for Thursday at 3. Like, your customers want to be able to do it in this way. Don't fight it. Lean into it. Make it easy, right? And then, of course, have a pretty website that has all of the other factors that you think of: mobile friendliness, personality, authenticity, messaging that speaks to them in their particular situation. This is a great example of a website that's converting at a very high level. And then I'll pull this one up so I don't have to reshare the screen. This is JD Precision. They're based in the Spring, Texas area. And you can see here, I love when we can get pictures of the team. People want to do business with people they know, like, and trust, and they have that real authenticity. Great website that makes somebody want to choose you versus the competition. Phone number and easy to place, ability to two-way text message, and then online scheduling where I can pick a time right on the website. I can book my schedule. And so lots of different platforms that you can put in place for this, whether it's Schedule Engine, directly through Service Titan, directly through your dispatch platform, or like a platform like Conversion Amp, which we set up. Lots of ways to skin the cat, but it needs to be done. I'm telling you, this in today's market will absolutely improve your conversion rates. And so the example here, $14,000 in spend, 1,931 leads, $7.26 per lead. But really what I want to show you, traffic versus lead, 25%. And that's Cardinal, the website we were just looking at. I showed you JD Precision, $14,000 invested in online marketing, 625 leads. They're in Spring, Texas, a little more competitive, $22.69 per lead. Conversion rate, traffic to lead flow, 20%. When you dial this in, you can significantly improve your rate of conversion from a visitor into an actual book job. I've got a checklist for that for you in the workbook. That way you can say, okay, what am I missing on this website? Why am I converting at 7% versus 20% like some of these other companies? There's very specific things that we can put in place on the website that generate those outcomes. The other really big driver of your conversion is your reputation, right? It's what somebody sees on Google, on Yelp, on Angie before they call. Because the fact is, they're going to get to the place, whether they found you from your brand, whether they found you from SEO, or they found you from paid ads, where they're like, okay, I kind of like JD Precision, but before I book, let me look at their reviews. And they're going to type in your company name plus reviews. And if you don't have enough reviews, or if you don't have a high average review count in terms of the actual ratings, that's going to harm your conversion rate. And so the best thing you can do on this front is just bake it into your process. At the end of every service call, there should be some automation that fires that says, hey, thanks for choosing our company. We'd love it if you'd write us a review, right? And so My preferred mechanism is your dispatch platform. Let's say it's Service Titan, or maybe it's House Call Pro. You complete the job, it closes the loop, and then it fires the review request. And you can push that through Conversion Amp, which is our platform, Bird Eye, Customer Lobby, all of these different tools and platforms. A really good example of this is the Plumbing Nerds, company we worked with over the years in Bonita Springs. And you can see here 1,200 reviews with a 4.8 review star rating. And then Bonita Springs, 1,500 reviews with a 4.8 review rating. That was a function of obviously doing a lot of volume, but also having a great class experience and then using automation to drive as many review counts after every service call. And you can see here about $21,000 invested in online, 885 leads, $25.30 per lead. That's a function of having a great reputation and converting those leads into opportunities. And then number 3, when it comes to maximizing conversion, is to leverage automation. I really believe there's more than enough deal flow for all of you, and there's plenty of leads to get, right? We can get leads through SEO. We can get leads through local service ads. We can get leads through our trucks and our brand, through our reputation, through Google ads, through Angie, through Thumbtack. Lead flow is abundant. There's lots of people that need these services, and there's lots of places that they can come in from. What I have found is like 50 to 60% of inbound calls leave unconverted. And 90% of the web forms on you guys' websites don't convert from an opportunity into an actual booked job. And that's because leads that don't get followed up within 15 minutes or less tend to go cold, right? They're going somewhere else. The average customer that doesn't book immediately needs to be followed up with 5 to 7 times. And today's customer would prefer to interact via text message versus the phone and versus email. And so the real solution here is to leverage automation. The technology exists where the second someone fills out a form on your website, they're getting a text message and a phone call and an email. And then the moment they call in and say they're interested, but they need to check with their spouse, so they're going to call back later, we can add them to a drip campaign via email and text message to make sure we're touching them and nudging them forward. We find when we put these automations in place, we can significantly improve the conversion rate from a lead to a booked job, and then from a booked job into a review, and then from a review to a repeat customer that uses you again and again and refers you to others. We do this through Conversion Amp, but there's lots of different ways to put this type of automation in place. And so these are the things we want to focus on in order to maximize our conversion. I'd love for you guys to pull up your workbooks here and go to page number 3 and just kind of rate yourself on this one. 1 being we're missing the boat, 5 being we're doing well. All right. And then last but not least, we have to optimize our results. We got to figure out, okay, spending money on lead flow. We're investing in tools in order to maximize conversion. How do we optimize the results? First and foremost is total spend, because a lot of times we get to whatever our level is. Let's say we get to $1 million per year and we've set a goal to get to 3. We got to get to 3 million. And we've always spent $5,000 a month. That's kind of what our budget has been. And we expect that somehow or another, we're going to spend the same amount and get that outcome. What I found is a lot of times when you're stagnated, when you're not in momentum, it's because you have not increased your investment in marketing, or you have to spend money in these things in order to get the results. And so I've got a calculator for you. I'm not going to go through this exercise on today's workshop, but if you go to calculator.plumberseo.net, and then you click on the top, there's a budget planner. This will help you decide, okay, I know that I need 750 leads per month. What percentage of my revenue am I investing back in marketing? And if it's not more than 5%, you're setting yourself up for stagnation. 5% is typically the amount you want to reinvest in order to stay where you're at. For moderate growth, between 6 and 15%. For accelerated, like fast action growth, you need to be investing 15% or more. And so that calculator will help you see, wow, I'm not nearly spending enough. And more importantly, with that budget, how do I deploy those dollars? Josh talked about SEO. He talked about pay-per-click. He talked about local service ads. He talked about marketing automation. Where can I spend those dollars to get the best result? And it can't all go to SEO. Someone needs to go to SEO. Somebody needs to go to paid search. Some of it needs to go to retargeting. Some of it needs to go to repeat and referral marketing back to your existing customer base. And so that should really help get clarity on where, like, how much should I be spending? And then how do I deploy those dollars? And then from there, yeah, you're going to probably spend a little bit more, but we also have to optimize the results. Like, I'm not encouraging you to spend money in a vacuum, right? If you're going to spend 10 grand in marketing, you better know how much those leads are costing, and you better know how many of them are getting booked, and you better know what the true return on investment is. And so at a minimum, you need to know what your average cost per lead is. So if I spent $5,000 and I generated 355 leads, what's my cost per lead? So we need to know, how much do we spend? What's our average cost per lead? And I've showed you this dashboard kind of throughout the workshop. This is what we set up for our clients. Massive clarity on a month-over-month basis, quarter-over-quarter basis, annual basis. How much do we spend? So in this case, Paul the plumber, $11,999. We know exactly how much we spent. And we know that that was the amount we needed to spend because we reversed engineered the goal and the lead target, right? So that's how much we spent. How many leads do we actually generate? We've got to be tracking the phone calls. We've got to be tracking the web submissions. We've got to be tracking the online scheduling, in this case, 1,119 leads. And then we can divide that out and know that we're spending about $10.85 per lead, right? And these are real numbers for Paul Plumber. And you can see, like, how many came from organic, how many came from pay-per-click, how many came from Google Maps, so that we can optimize and say, okay, our cost per lead is a little bit higher on this pay-per-click stuff. Maybe we should shift it more to LSA. Maybe we should shift it to other places. So make sure that you've got a dashboard of some sort. That way you can track the results and you can confidently strive towards that goal, strive towards that target that you've set. And then the final component is ROI, return on investment, right? Like, move away from projections and really move towards, can I spend $1 and get $7 in return? If so, I'll spend that dollar all day long. But what we don't want to feel like is like we're going to a slot machine, right? And some of us have done marketing over the years and it feels like a slot machine. I'm putting in $10 and I'm pulling the thing. One day I might get an ROI and one day I might not. Like, we want to be able to feel like more like we're going to an ATM. Like, I know I put my PIN code in and I ask for a certain amount of money and the money comes right out. It's consistent and it's reliable. And so what we can do with ROI insights, if you're using SureTitan or House Call Pro or one of these other platforms, is actually match the leads that we generate to the booked jobs and to the revenue generated. And this gives you true return on investment tracking. And I think that's the gold standard. I think that's where the top plumbing, HVAC, home service companies need to be, where we can set a goal, we can build a plan, and then we can track the results down to the ROI and deploy those funds in a way that generates consistent, measurable growth towards the accomplishment of that goal. And so in your workbook, back to page 3, I'd love you to kind of, when it comes to that ROI side of the equation, how are you doing? Like, 1 being like, I don't really know. I know I'm spending money, but I don't really know what's working. 5 being like, you feel like you've got it down to the penny, like you've got it dialed in and it's all working. Throughout the workbook, there's lots of resources. There's a complete checklist for each one of these around SEO, around paid search, around conversion optimization. What I really encourage you to do is go through that worksheet, go through the checklist, find where there's room for improvement, find the lowest hanging fruit. You can't implement all of this overnight. Find what you can implement today that's going to generate a result in the next 30 to 60 days. And some of us can do it ourselves. Some of us have a team that we can say, hey, go execute this for me. Some of us need to figure out who, right? And there's a great book called Who Not How. How do I track this? How do I build this myself? Who says, like, who's already done this? Who's got a proven mechanism? Who can actually implement this on my behalf to give me the outcomes? And so if you're looking for that who for your digital marketing, hopefully you consider plumbing and HVAC SEO. You consider us as an opportunity that can help you take our years of experience, take all of our frameworks, all of the things that we found to be really, really accessible, and deploy them for you. And so going back to this Paul Plumber example, over the last couple of years, he grew from 6 trucks to 16 trucks, generated over $10 million last year, And now he's super confident that he can continue to grow, he can continue to scale. And so throughout the course of today's workshop, we talked about how to triple your sales by getting your internet marketing right, right? Hopefully you've had a chance to look at this book or you've received it in the past. My goal was to give you the step-by-step playbook, to give you all of the exact things you can put in place and back it up with case studies. And I've showed you just a handful of the case studies that have been relevant to us over the last decade, proving that when we do this well, when we implement it, we can get the outcomes. Tripling your revenue year over year, every 12 to 24 months is very achievable. Hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully this has been insightful. If you would like our help, if you're like, hey, you know what, Josh, this sounds really good. I think you might be the company that can help me execute this. I think you might be the company that can help me get that outcome that I'm looking for as I look to grow and scale my plumbing and HVAC company. We'd love the opportunity to chat. You can call us at 866-610-4647 or go to plumbersco.net/schedule. And when you schedule on that page, what we'll do is we'll do a complete analysis of your website, your current online marketing. We'll get you that list of the most commonly searched keywords and show you where you're coming up. We'll do an analysis of your current paid online marketing strategy and show you what's good, what's bad, and where you might be overspending. We'll do a review of how you're tracking your results so that you can start to get clear, like what would it look like if I could spend $1 and generate 5 to 10 consistently as I grow and scale. And so we do that for those of you that are on here live with us, completely free of charge and no obligation. We're not going to do a hard twist sale process with you. We'll give you the data. We'll do the review. And if it makes sense and you're like, hey, Josh, this sounds great, we'll talk about price and we'll walk you through what it would look like to partner with our company to execute these strategies. So thanks for tracking with me today. Would love to show more value. I can only do that by getting with you one-on-one, right? By looking at your current website, looking at your current situation, understanding where you're at, what your goals are, what your internal operations look like. And the way to do that is by going to plumbersco.net/schedule. Pick a time that works for you. Give us a little bit of detail about your company, where you're based, what your services are. Drop in your website link. We'll have all the raw materials that we need to go out and create an amazing analysis and an amazing action plan for you specifically. So thanks again for joining us. Again, plumbersco.net/schedule. And I look forward to hearing your results. I look forward to potentially working with you one-on-one through our company, Plumbing and HVAC SEO, and can't wait to celebrate you as you continue to grow and scale your company. Thanks, everybody.